I don't know if anyone can hear me. If you can hear me, hey, Victor, good to see you again. Hi, there we are. Wait, why is that going on? Stop it. Why is the sound? How do I stop it? There we are. That's how it is done. I think the sound should be running. Victor, you can tell me if it's running or not. I've got my towel here. I actually got my aircon on. Today I thought I wasn't going to have to use it. But just knowing me, probably be a good idea to have it on as I do this. Victor, hello. I'm relying on you to tell me that the sound is coming loud and clear through. I think I've got I dropped the pen again. Second time I'm doing that. I'm probably going to have to put the pen down. It's actually a prop for today's pre-show. Yeah, I actually have a pre-show. Just a moment here, guys. Or guy, Victor, waiting for you or your wife, somebody, to tell me what's going on. Do I have that right? Let's see. Where's my pen? Just a second. Got it. Don't look down. Don't look down. Or up. Whatever. Yeah, we're organized today, guys, and we're gonna rely on Victor to not say anything. So we're gonna put the pen down, but we're gonna be using the pen in just a second. I'm gonna start kind of preamble this show by saying it's been a while, and I'm really sorry about that. Maybe not everyone here is terribly sorry to not have me doing shows more often or doing videos more often. I do have a couple things in the works. Things have been delayed incredibly. I sure hope we have sound. Victor, waiting for you, man. I have hoped. Sound is good. Thank you very much. Although I've noticed one thing. I was on a couple of weeks ago with a... Thank you very much. Very good. I was on a show. The YouTube channel is called Semiagog. I was on his show talking about Japanese nationalism. And I'm an expat here. And I found when I was watching back his show as well as mine, whenever I watch my streams back again, for some reason, the sound may be loud and clear, but also sounds muffled. I have no idea why that is, except to say, you're alone today. Well, I hope your wife is enjoying whatever she's doing that's not watching some guy talk about cameras, disappointing ones as well as non-disappointing ones. So don't worry, we're going to get some good stuff, hopefully, today. Victor, I can't remember... Which system is it that you're using? Mirrorless, DSLR, film, whatever. Doesn't matter. I'm sweating. Sorry about this, guys. You know what? The users will pick up again. Last time, I think we had a maximum of 6 at a time. We've had up to 15. Not bad. Not good. But today, we will be talking about, as you can tell, the Nikon Z6II. Fujifilm's recently announced, or just about to be announced, XF10-24 weather resistant. That's a new thing added. Ring lens, basically Mark II super wide angle zoom, as well as Canon's M50II, which just got announced and appears to have basically foiled all the rumor attempts. You did? Oh, you saw me there. Well, I'm glad. I'm not sure what to say about that. I'll probably. Well, I'm replying here to Victor. Yeah, I'm a right winger, pretty right winger, but whatever. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about those 3 cameras. But before I want to do that, because people will come here, it's going to take them a little bit of time to get here. What I wanted to do, Nikon and Canon. Okay, Victor, are you using DSLR, or is it mirrorless, or is it a mix of both? I can't remember. I'm sorry. I really should take notes. It's not like I have to follow 1,000 viewers and take notes on that. I really have only 3 or 4 people that really show up. Thank you very much every single time. But I will be doing those. But first, I wanted to sort of, while I'm gathering people here, and Victor, you may be the only one at the moment who's going to watch this, is basically show right here. See if I can show you some macro. This is the the Sigma 150 f2.8. Wait, wrong way. On the Canon, it's a macro. It's called an APO. I'm not sure if it's an actual. Oh, so you got the Nikon 1J5. Wow, and Canon M6 Mark II. M6 Mark II. Oh, really? Okay. Well, that's two speedy systems as far as I understand. Also interesting from Nikon and Canon, two fellows that didn't used to be in bed together, but now it appears that Nikon and Canon sort of the enemies or their rivalry is sort of somewhat dampened, especially as Sony rise up and users of other systems become more and more excited about their systems. But what I want to do today, just before we get started, is I wanted to do some macro, just to show you quickly. Now, I don't have the camera set up, tethered to the computer, so what I have to do is take a photograph and then show you what it looks like. But I did want to show you just basically just a couple of different things. One-to-one magnification, which all of you have probably done many times in your labs, in your work, just for fun. Even with your iPhone, I think you can get pretty close to that. Just one-to-one photography, then versus by basically stacking lenses using a macro Canon lens and then using a microscope objective, just to show the differences. A lot of people who talk about macro never really go beyond 1/1. And the most I've ever done in, what is it called? In commercial work is 3 times. I've never gone beyond that for any commercial work, which means that, and 3 times, by the way, if you're using bellows and you're using like 120 millimeter lens, you're stretching the bellows, sorry about that, way out. If you're using a lens like this, of course, it's a much more compact thing like that, than that, sorry. And when I was using the big bellows with a digital back, I can sync to 1/500 for flash, which is really nice. With a camera like this, I cannot do that. But there's a whole bunch of different benefits anyway for using a smaller sensor. However, I'm sure that some people will not like to hear that. Anyway, let's just get this going. Victor, this is for you as it is at the moment. We're just going to show, I'm going to take a couple of photographs first with the Sigma alone. And I'm going to wipe my head just a bit. Sorry about this. I'm going to take it with the Sigma just of this lens here that fell down. And actually, Victor, if you would give me just a moment, I'm going to turn the aircon on just a little bit more. Whenever I concentrate, I get really warm. So give me about 15 seconds. Pardon me. All right, turn down the aircon by just a little bit. So what we're going to do right here is we're going to show the Sigma 150 f2.8 1/1 camera, a lens on the Canon, and we're just going to see how close I can get to a pen. Now, like I said, a lot of you guys have already done, or at the moment it's just Victor, a lot of you guys have done sort of 1-to-1 macro photography, and of course, Victor, you use also high-speed cameras in your lab at the university. You've probably done some crazy stuff. So let's turn on the Canon. This is going to be, I'm not going to use a flash. I'm not going to sync to a gray card. So this is just going to be as we sort of see it. So hopefully it's not too bad. Just going to compare some action here. Obviously mirror up to focus in live view. How close can we get? No, that's not it. I wish I really had set this up for tethering, because that would actually be, this would be a really great moment to do tethering. Now, focusing, I've got the lens focused down to maximum closeness. So, and I'm going to turn on the stack shot so I can just sort of zoom in without any mistakes. So 2-to-1, you've done 2-to-1. Okay, wow. I've got to allow a 24 macro. Right. Mine today, we're going to be using just a 35 millimeter lens. So I think I've done the calculations. It's either 4 to 5 magnification. So this will be 1-to-1. Let's just zoom right in here. I'm going to show you the photographs after. Sorry, I wish I could tether this. Oh, shoot. Gonna have to back out and bring the whole camera contraption forward a bit. Don't you love the professional appeal of this show? All right. This is an old camera stand here, so it's not exactly gonna, you really have to bolt it down to make sure it doesn't move at all. I'm gonna have to back way out. Don't worry, it's working, guys. Don't worry about this. All right. Bring the camera in. This is a great way to start the show, man. All right. Make sure we got enough room here. Don't worry, it's working. It's working. You like that sound? The stock shot makes quite a bit of noise. When I bought it originally, they're like, you'll not want to use it for any sort of video work. And I'm like, why is that? And they're like, when you use it, you'll see why. Okay. Zoom out. Now let's see if we zoom in. Can we get there? Can we get there? Thought I would. Am I doing something wrong here? Let's just see here. Oh, I am doing something wrong. That's right. 1:1 on this camera is going to be a little bit farther. Is he still there, Victor? Good. There's someone else here. Hey, whoever you are, welcome to see you, or good to see you. Where the heck is that bloody thing? Problem with macro. Ah, there we are. All right. All right. Zoom way back out here and put the camera. Guys, hey, good to see you, man. Who else is here? Cool setup. Did you say anyway? Though, basically the same thing. You're like, okay, man, your presentation sucks, but cool setup. I've never done a review of this system yet, the stack shot, and I really want to. Part of the reason is, well, things got a little complicated after I started the channel, and I started doing a lot simpler stuff immediately, and everyone's like, dude, that's not what we came here. We scribed. Oh, there we are. Okay. All right. We're gonna take our first exposure. Just a second here. Let's see. We're gonna go at this isn't gonna be. I'm not gonna try to do this so that's just like to show you like the best setup and just how to use this lens. I just want to show you the different magnification settings versus 3 different lenses. So here's the f2.8, and we're gonna set it to f2.8, and we're gonna just enlarge here. This is the closest focus that I can do with this camera, this lens. Sorry. I'm gonna make sure that we're actually in focus, and we got to set this up for just a moment. Make sure that we have a 2-second timer on this thing, because otherwise it's gonna. There we are. There's gonna be too much camera shake. I don't have a remote for this at the moment. I haven't been doing macro photography with the Canon, so here we are. That looks good. What's amazing about the Canon is you can zoom in way, way close, and it's still responsive, so I like that. Okay, that's roughly good. We're gonna hit the let's lock this thing down. I have to refocus this. Victor, good to see you're still here, man. All right, there we are. Back or down? No, go forward a bit. This system, the stack shot, you can set to move at like 100 UMs, 10 UMs, 1 UM. It's incredible. All right, here we go. Wait, let's bump up the ISO. Since we're not using flash, I don't want to have any blur here. All right, shoot. Hey, why isn't it not shooting? We have a problem here. What's going on? What have I done? Manual focus. What's going on? Oh, there it goes. Now it shoots. Just a moment, guys. Let's try this again. I'm just going to double check this is working out. Good. There's a little bit of a misfocus. Let's try this again. Go a little farther in. There's a lot of movement in this house. Okay, almost close enough. All right, let's hope this works. Yeah, tethering would have been cool, eh? Tethering would have been really cool. But I didn't think of doing it. All right, here we go. All right, let's see here. All right, that's pretty good. This is a 1-to-1. I'll show you about later. The tethering would have been cool. Yes. But now what we're going to do is we're going to adapt a microscope objective, which perhaps, Victor, you've used in your work. I'm not sure. Not exactly. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your work while I'm setting this up? What I use here, by the way, is called a RAF camera adapter. It's from a threaded M52, and it goes down to a 26 for a microscope objective. I just screw it in here. Actually, you know what? I'm going to screw first onto the camera. Onto the lens, sorry. Because I don't want to drop the lens. What's this? Oh, micrometers, yeah. Whatever they're called. I'm not a scientist, man. All right. Now I have what is called an M-Plan APO 5x 0.14. It's a pretty good lens with a decent sort of throw, or a decent sort of working distance, but not. I have to move the camera way in, and it's going to probably take me a little while to figure. I got to unlock this thing where everything is here. Okay, now I'm gonna probably be able to back down a bit, maybe. I see something in there. It's always a finger test. Finger test is always, not always, sometimes a good way to do this, to see where, how far. Oh, there we are. Got to zoom in just a little bit more here. Tilt this bad boy forward. Oh. So this is with a 5 times magnified microscope lens. Now, what I should do, by the way, and what I can do, a lot of the tutorials tell you you need to do this basically. You should have a 200 millimeter sort of focus objective, or whatever that's called, for your eye, basically. But I don't have that. I just have it on a macro lens, and it's 150, so it's not optimal. This lens is only supposed to be able to cover APS-C, but if you zoom way in, I found that this objective here can actually cover a GFX sensor. So what we're going to do is we're just going to put that right on top of the closest focus distance for the Sigma and just take the photograph. Now, it may not be perfect, but let's just see how this goes. All right. Oh, there we, okay. Oof, it is, it's a lot darker. So effective aperture here, I really wish I was using flashes, because effective aperture, we're at f2.8 at 1. So basically we're at f2.8. Now you multiply that by 5. So we're like somebody who's 8 times 5, 40. So f14, something like that, f14 or f15. So it's, we don't have a lot of light here. I'm going to switch the timer to 10 seconds. How's that? Oh, I only have 2 seconds. All right, let's see here. Whew. All right. See if we can do this. Because, all right, close focus. All right, hold your breath, guys. I don't know if that's going to be solid. You know what I can do? Maybe turn on the OIS. It might actually help slightly. Because I don't have this thing nailed down, like I said. All right. It might help slightly. Let's see. All right. No. Okay, good luck. That's moving way too much. I'm not going to get, it's not a good, I'm not going to show you an amazing example of how sharp this lens is, but it's a very good lens. Anyway, that's 5 types. Now let's take the 35mm f2.8 lens and see how close we can get. All right. I see there's a little bit of typing on the screen. So what I'm going to do, I'll answer you when I get there. So this lens, of course, is the Canon Photo Macro. You can't really see the lettering on it, I don't think, very well, but it's Photo Macro 35, also f2.8. But I think you'll find that we're going to get in a little bit closer. So the screen's going to get darker. I don't have a flashes. Sorry about that, guys. I didn't think about this to the last moment. This is just an intro to get into the topic. All right. So the way I do it, I'm going to take off this adapter here. Make sure the lens doesn't fall down because it's a pretty expensive microscope lens here. Untwist it just so you can see what this is. It's a Mitutoyo or Mitsutoyo M-Plan Apo. Where's this? 5 times. Very good lens. Horrible case. Why is the case horrible for it? It screws in wonderfully to its thread mounts, but this part here is so finely threaded that I've only ever once properly screwed it back on. That's what she said. Let's see. Yeah, so I just kind of screw it on like halfway. That's also what she said. And then, so anyway, I use the same mount, the 72 threaded, and then I use this one, which steps down from the microscope down to whatever it is that this Canon uses. It's a very small mount here. And this Canon basically covers a mount about the same thing. It'll cover full frame at maximum extension or magnification, but it won't cover it that well. Anyone who's coming here, I see there's 3 people here now. This is just an intro to get going before we start talking about the topic at hand, which is of course, the quote-unquote disappointment with the new announcements from Fujifilm, Canon, and Nikon. Now, this part of the video is taking a little bit longer than I thought it would. Oh. Okay, 4 times 10 to 40 times magnification. Fine. Fine, Victor. You're like way ahead of me. Fine. That's cool, man. That's cool. I won't forget this. Somewhere, hopefully, we're going to get into focus. Oh, something's coming into focus. Got to get really close to this bad boy. Actually, you know what? It's not actually that much closer than the microscope objective. But the working distance for this lens, if you can't really see it here, but I'm looking at about 2.5 centimeters between the subject, which is this pen, and the lens, meaning you couldn't use this for insects, no way. And if you're going to do it for any sort of subject, for like, you're going to use it for, commercial photography, you want to light it, you have to have a lot of light right to the sides, but you have to have very small lights. You're not going to be able to use big studio lights very easily, unless you have some sort of snoots and some other, like prop. Of course, if you're using this lens for commercial photography, you probably got some like pretty awesome setup. All right. All right, this is closer actually. Let's see here. All right, we're gonna focus in on this one and see if we can get there. the camera is taking up all the light here. This is a really, I just thought to do this right before I started. So this lens isn't quite as sharp as the microscope objective. I'm thinking, what's that sound? That's about as good as I'm going to get. Well, maybe. Let's say that's good. Okay. Hold your breath, guys. All right. That's all right. Now it's time to talk about the subject. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the stack shot. We'll do a review of this later on. I'm going to move the camera stand out a bit like this. I'm going to turn off the Canon. And before I hurt this lens or drop anything, I'm going to take off the microscope, or sorry, the macro lens. Canon say this is good down to 20 times magnification, but I think, as we'll see, as I put this into Lightroom or whatever I will use to view it, it's probably not going to do for 20 times magnification. It's good, but I just don't think it's up to the quality of a modern microscope objective. It's definitely better than a regular macro lens. I would say it's probably better than Canon's ultra macro lenses that you see, like the 65 MPE and all that. But it's just not quite up to snuff. Okay, so this little bad boy, we're just going to open up in just in review. Don't need to do anything too fancy here. And then we're going to get on to the topic. It's nice and chilly in here. Wow, it's amazing when I'm doing commercial photography. All I'm doing is focusing a lens, moving around lights, lighting up things, and then shooting. And I get hot doing it. It's crazy, but that's what it is. All right, let's take a look at these photographs quickly. All right, how do I do this? Got a problem with my mouse here. All right, how do I? Got a real problem with the mouse. Not sure what's going on. Got a problem, guys. How do you know what? Got a problem with my mouse. It's bad enough that I can't click on anything. All right, well, that is going to be trouble. Why is that happening? Okay, guys, my mouse doesn't click anymore, and I don't have a backup mouse. Something's wrong here. If I can't do anything but right click, why is this? Why is this happening? Is there something interfering with it? Let's see here. Let's see. No. Okay, looks like I fixed it. Wow, I'm a genius. All right, I'm gonna go down here. EOS Digital. I'm going to go into the let's share the screen. Stop share screen, application window, EOS Digital. All right, should be somewhere down here right at the end. All right, guys, let's take a look at this here. I'm not going to try to look at anything that's bad, scary. Let's see here. That was not it. All right. So let's look at these last 4 photographs here. Open with preview. Is that, wait, is that going to show up? Let me just check here. Stop this one. We're going to share. Sorry, guys. I'm still new to this thing. No, application window. Here. All right. All right. So the first image that we took is with the macro at 1/1 magnification. So that would be life size, typical. And I think this one also. And we have a couple of problems here because I don't have the right amount of light. And once everything in term, I was focused with all the macro lenses and all that. Unfortunately, what happened is the effective magnification and f-stop and all that of all these lenses changed. So I had to shoot this at ISO 6400, and in order to not get any camera shake, I shot this at a shutter speed of 200, which meant that the other lenses, which I then shot at much closer range at effective focal lengths that are probably 10 times f2. Or not 10 times, but 5 times f2.8, and maybe a little bit more than that. I lost that much amount of light. I didn't have lights to fix it. I wasn't thinking about this in the right time. But anyway, we'll zoom in. How do you do it? Zoom 0. This is, whoa. Where'd I go? Zoomed all the way in with a Sigma. It's a very sharp macro lens. That's at f2.8. Again, it's not with flashes. There's probably a little bit of camera movement, etc. But as you can see, zoom. How do you zoom out? Whatever. This is 1 magnification. You add a microscope objective of 5 times, is a lot closer. So check it out. We're right here. You can see the entire cap of the pen, which let's see, make sure that we're actually looking here. Entire cap of the pen is here. So It looks about centimeter, almost 2 centimeters. Yeah, about 2 centimeters long here. Of course, on your sensor, it's going to be, depending on the sensor you're using, it's like that. But if you go 5 times, you're suddenly right down to the tip, basically, of a space of around 5 millimeters, maybe 4, like that. So it's much, much closer. Now, if we go all the way in, did it again. Still extremely sharp. Again, there's probably some sort of camera shake, but this is basically, I would imagine, if you tack it all down, do all the proper lighting, it's bam, right on. And then this is with the microscope objective at 5 times. The Canon, I'm thinking we're shooting at about 6, roughly. Well, maybe it's a little farther out. Or which one was Canon? You know what? This is the microscope objective, and this is the microscope objective. The Canon then is right here. As you can tell, I didn't quite nail the shot. It's a little bit softer, but I would imagine that if you shot it right with all the light, it would be fine. Again, I've never done any commercial work that's higher than 3 times. Anyway, that was the longest intro in the world. Now let's talk about the thing at hand. Ladies and gents, today we had a whole bunch of announcements. This was a long intro. We had a whole bunch of announcements. We had the Nikon Z6II announcement. We had and I believe, I think it's a good idea to probably head over to D Preview. It's always a great place to go. Because it sort of captures basically everything that the regular camera geek is probably wanting to talk about. As well, it's got links to everywhere else. So what we have today released, or at least announced, a couple of different things. Canon EOS M50 Mark II brings autofocus and video refinements. Interesting announcement style or title, at least as we know, as what's actually done to the M50. If we click on this, and this is the thing that a lot of people are sort of talking about at the moment, and why I wanted to bring this up is because it's sort of it's a disjointed connection between the camera that happened to be announced as well as what everyone was expecting to be announced. The camera looks exactly, as far as I can tell, basically like the old M50 Mark I. You can look at the different, look at the different photographs here. I don't see any change. I'm not an M50 owner, but I've held it before. It looks basically as much like an M50 as I remember. If we go down to this blurb here, Canon has just announced the EOS M50 Mark II, a relatively minor update to one of its most popular mirrorless models. M50 Mark II shares the same sensor, the same processor, and the dual pixel autofocus system has been updated to allow for eye tracking in both stills and video, and users can now capture vertical video and stream to YouTube live over a smartphone internet connection. The rest of the camera specs are largely unchanged. Video tops out at 4K 24p with a heavy 1.5 crop, which was a problem that a lot of people had in the original M50. Now, before I got my Fujifilm X-T3, I was really waffling back and forth between that Canon, a Nikon, an Olympus, and the Fujifilm. I'm glad I went with the Fujifilm for a number of reasons. One is that that's the only APS system. In fact, it's the only, I think Fujifilm are the only real crop system that takes themselves fully seriously. Olympus and Panasonic have done a lot of work to make their systems, or to make their lenses basically build out everything from super wide to, pretty serious telephoto lenses. But when it comes to overall features, as well as, you do have a slightly larger sensor with APS-C, as well as rounded out bodies, video. Panasonic obviously have one of the best video cameras in the G5 or whatever it is, GH5, but they don't have the autofocus that Olympus do. They certainly don't have the autofocus that Fujifilm do. Anyway, I went with Fujifilm. I was one of the people that was hoping for the Canon M50 Mark II to be quite a bit more of an exciting camera. Unfortunately, and let's go down to the comments because, oh, by the way, it's $599 to $699 if you get it with the kit lens. Go down to the comments here on D Preview. And here they go. Aggressive price, vlog centric. No wonder the M will live forever. Though Canon has tried hard to kill it without success. That's a positive comment. However, this is where it starts to get interesting. Tetsumo says this: I was thinking about buying an M50II when I read the first rumors on Canon rumors. Same with me, by the way. It was something like a mini M6II, but with a viewfinder. I really wanted a mirrorless APS-C companion to my new R6, but this is such a disgrace. Feels like a joke. This is even too much for a usual cripple hammer Canon. Crazy. Why would they even? Why? We would even be better with no release and just a firmware upgrade for the original M50. What are these guys thinking? I just don't get it. So what's he talking about? Well, if we were to go over to Canon rumors, let's just go do that. Let's go down, because they do have a rumor on the M50. Is this it? Sorry about this, guys. Got stuff coming up here. Just want to make sure our things going all right here. Go down here. Gosh, there's no. Why are there so many adverts everywhere? Just get it off. All right. Here. Okay. So what the article I've just linked to now, or just gone to right now, this is essentially article saying that what came out is exactly what we got, which ain't so exciting. However, yeah, they mentioned Digic 8. That's not exciting. Everyone's hoping for the new Digic, whatever it is, or dual Digic, whatever it is. So this is kind of pointing to a camera that's not terribly exciting. And even camera rumors fans yesterday are like, hey, this is just basically a firmware update. Well, what were they saying like a week ago or several days ago that made everyone, including all these bloody adverts, everyone, including me, excited? Let's go down to it. Where was it? Now, these guys, is this going to have... I think this is it. These guys are generally spot on with their rumors, but at this time, they keep bringing these bloody adverts up. All right. Here it is. I think. Wait. Should have had it right. Just a second here. Where'd it go? I'm not terribly good at this. Where's the actual rumor? Did he take it down? He wouldn't have done that. There's no way he would have done that. Have I missed it? I don't know where it is. All right. Nathan, you failed this one. You screwed it up. Well, there was an amazing rumor that this thing was basically going to be an EOS M6II in an M50 body. Everyone was excited about that. Turns out it's basically a firmware update that allows you to connect through your smartphone, as well as do iFocus in video, as well as photograph. And this is a real problem because Canon have been working against the impression that all they do is cripple their cameras in order to get you to either move up or to hold you back long enough to think about possibly moving into another system. Now, in general, I think that's kind of unfair. Canon have, I think, come a long way. Sure, they can do a lot better than that, but they've come a long way. But the M52 is definitely not exciting. Would it have been better for them to announce nothing at all? I think it would have. I think it would have much better if it was, for instance, all the hardware is exactly the same. If all they did was update it with a firmware update, yeah. What would have that done? It would have shown all of the Canon users, especially of the M50 Mark I, that Canon care about their long-term support, that they made a project that not only was decent back in the day, but could now finally come up and do something pretty cool later on, and do something that some of the other cameras were already able to do, or that are just starting to do in more new versions of hardware. They didn't do it. So this isn't the Canon cripple hammer. This is literally Canon bringing out the same camera with a bit of difference in the firmware or some programming, and that's it. Real problem. Now, there's a couple of things here. If we go down to the Nikon just brought out the Z6II and the Z7II. Sorry about that. They are actually, I got to say this. I was pretty excited when I saw that. I'm not going to buy one. I'm definitely not. No, I'm using a DSLR, pretty happy with that. But the announcements are pretty damn good. What have people been complaining about since the Z6 and the Z6 and Z7 came out? No dual card slots. That was basically the big one. Some people wanted some faster processing. Some people wanted higher point EVFs for the Z6, etc. But basically, the things that they really wish were better, Nikon fixed. Absolutely, they fixed. So if we go down to the Z6II and Z7II article on Deep Review, it says they boast dual processors and gain a second card slot. Now, it's the same body, so it's a little bit small. If you have a problem with the Z6 and the Z6 or the Z7, you're going to have a hard time holding these cameras as well. However, as you can tell, go over to the photographs here. Not the photographs. I thought they were going to have it in there. They don't. Anyway, you can put in a second card. Where's the second card here? You can tell here. Each camera gains a second UHS SD card slot to complement the existing compact flash express or XQD slot. So it's two different cards, which is often done in higher end cameras or older DSLRs with two card slots like this one, the 5D4, which has a CF card, the old type, type B, I guess, as well as an SD card. But it's got two. And a lot of you guys were complaining. Now, some of the people that supported the Z6 and the Z7 are like, it's not a big problem, man, because those compact flash express or XQD cards don't fail like SD cards do. And that's true. They are more robust and they're faster. And it was, well, you can just plug your camera in to the computer and have it download all your stuff there. So most of the failures that happen between the card and the camera are when you take the card out. You drop it, you bend a pin, whatever. But how are the comments for this thing going? How are the comments going? Let's go down. View comments. I second the sentiment. This is coming from Starbase 218. I second the sentiment that these being a bit underwhelming. They did what they had to do, but not much more. However, the Z7 II will be available for $2,999, which means a stock of Z7 will be what, $2,499? Basically, the price, they kept the prices, doubled up the card slots, and made faster cameras. Now, should they have made brand new cameras, ground up, completely new designs? Should they have done that? You know what? If you have a 2 in the name, probably you should keep the basic design similar. Why is that? Because if you're coming from a Z6, you want to be able to transfer over your muscle memory and all that as much as possible, like you do when you're going from a 5D3 to 5D4. Very similar, not exactly the same, but you're basically being able to translate yourself into the next bit of hardware, and there's no problem. Now, the differences between the 4 years between 2012 and 2016 for the 5D3 and 5D4 were much bigger in hardware. But we're looking at a 2-year stopgap between the Z6 and the Z6II and the Z7 and the Z7 II. But you got 2 card slots and you got a faster processor. You have the same weather sealing. You have the same awesome joystick, great placement for the AF on button, all that. You have basically great ergonomics that Nikon have basically nailed with the Z6 series. You still have those problems, essentially from the firmware, where it's not as easy to select your autofocus stuff as with a DSLR. So it's kind of hard. Is this a disappointment? It seems that if you look through a lot of the comments, that's Deep Review, and especially if you read Food Rumors, Deep Review is like the heart of just the worst of GAS people. All it is old, what's the word? Gammons is the word they use. All it is old gammons sitting down there, fat in their mom's basements, at 60 years old, so it's probably their basement now, and they're just hammering away. They never take photographs, nothing like that. But the truth is, if you go to various forums, you're going to find the same people all around there. The people that are taking photographs are not going to be on the internet anyway. People that are talking about it will definitely be generally men. We like to talk about gear for some reason. Yay, they added another card slot to old cameras and released new cameras. Maybe in 2 years we'll see the Z6 III and Z7 III with 3 card slots. It's not a bad idea, by the way. And if you can do Roman numerals anyway, and it looks like 3 slots for 1 or 2 or 3, sorry, yeah, why not? But if you're going to do like a Mark and it says 1, 2, or 3 that's in like the alphanumerics, it's probably a bad idea. But here we go. This guy is called Scorpionet. Where are all those who said that only one memory slot was enough? And this is the thing. This is the thing. You have, it seems kind of crazy to me. You have these people who, when a camera comes out, they're just going to defend it because it's their brand, or, you know, it's all they have. What else are they going to do? They're going to jump ship to another company? No. So, you know, they're like, okay, single slot, that's kind of a bugger, but we can do it. Everyone's been able to do it all this time, no problem. So why are you complaining about only having one slot? What? How many times have you ever had a card fail? Well, Nikon then come out and they basically fix it by adding another slot. And those people do have to make a decision. It's like when Sony came out with the A7R4 and they changed the grip a bit so that it was farther away from the mount. That's something I've complained for a long time. If you have an A7 III, A7 II, you put your finger, you hold it like you should a camera. And when you do that, what happens is that your finger gets jammed up right against the lens, even if you're using a pretty slim lens, and it can be pretty painful if you're using a fast lens. But and Sony people were like, "What's your problem, man? You're holding the camera wrong." They're doing the whole Steve Jobs thing. You're holding the phone wrong, and that's why the reception is dropping out. Liddy, don't come in, please. That was scary. So your reception is going to drop out. It's your fault. Sony people are like, "Listen, your fingers are too fat. That's a problem." And he's like, "Well, I've used cameras this entire time, and I've got pretty slim metrosexual fingers. So what's the problem?" Like, well, you got to add a little bracket on the bottom to extend the grip. And you're like, "Well, should I have to do that?" And they're like, "If you want to use our camera, you should." Well, then Sony come along and they fix that by moving the grip about 3 centimeters farther away. And what happens is, even with those big lenses, a fat-fingered person can suddenly hold the camera no problem. So what do you do there? Well, with the Z6, it is true. Absolutely, people that said there's going to be one slot and one slot's no problem, and you'll never have a problem, will now have to deal with the fact that Nikon have upgraded their camera to include 2 slots. And this is where the logical, the cognizant difference, or whatever it's called, comes into play. Are you going to defend the thing that really was kind of a problem next to other hardware back in the day, and say that what they've added is unnecessary, and you really wish they would take it back? Like those Fujifilm people are like, we really want a camera that has no video features at all. Just bring us a regular camera that does only photo stuff, because we don't need the video stuff, and you can take away the $500 or $300 that it costs for all the video stuff. And other people are like, well, that stuff's probably all included anyway. It would just be some sort of firmware that would disable that functionality. Well, eventually you have to defend a backwards move, or you have to defend the past for some idiotic reason, or you have to be like, okay, they did something, and you know what? It's not a bad idea. So the Z6 and Z7 are not major updates. They have added a card that a lot of people complained about. A lot of people are like, I'm jumping ship because there's not 2 cards and this and that. And at this point, I don't see a reason why anyone. Just a moment. Got a little thing here from Chrome saying it's got update. Don't do it. Oh, someone just sent me a. Pardon me. Marcus Outdoors is like, is it charged? I don't know what Marcus Outdoors. I ignored you this entire time, around 8 minutes. Sorry about that. I'm going to go back to the article, but what do you mean by what is it charged? So a lot of these people who basically defended the Z6 as it was against the market are going to have to either accept a new thing or keep defending the past in a weird, silly way. Again, I don't think it was a major update. I wish very much that Nikon maybe made its body just a little bit taller, but this is a Mark II version. But I still think they could have done quite a bit more to it. Adding a Mark II is kind of a cheap thing. Why don't you? It would be cooler, actually, if they just said 6.5 or something like that. It's easier to say. You don't have to add a whole bunch of words. You don't have to add spaces. You don't have to add extra numerals. And you don't have to, once you say Mark II or this version, the second one, people expect more. But if you just put a point in there, just say it's a point release, then people might understand it a little bit easier. They'll be like, oh, point release, so we can probably expect exact same outside, just some minor things are fixed. They won't expect a firmware update, because if it's a firmware update and you actually release a different piece of hardware or call it something else, then you've basically screwed the pooch, which I think Canon did for the M50 Mark II. But the Z6 and Z7 have different processors, dual processors, and they have 2 card slots. There's quite a big difference. Just not that exciting 2 years on. Why is it not exciting 2 years on? Back in the DSLR age, it would be 4 years between major updates of mid-end hardware and high-end hardware. Now, with the mirrorless, everything is happening so fast. I mentioned this in the earlier live stream. Why is it a problem? It's a problem because people expect things immediately. Either it's an internet age thing, or it's a smartphone release age thing, or whatever it is. Camera makers are not able to properly keep up. Sony were on an insane release rate from like 2013, 2014. They came out with A7, A7R2, then 3 came out pretty quick after that. And a lot of people in my camp, the Fujifilm camp, were like, Sony, whenever they have a problem, they just fix it with a new piece of hardware. Well, 5 years down the line, Fujifilm were releasing more hardware than Sony ever did, and they're still going faster. They released a new camera recently. I'm not going to talk about that today because it's a brand new camera. There's nothing to be upset about because it's not a piece of hardware that anyone had any comparison to prior, unless you were to say, what's the difference between it and an XT30? We're not going to get into that. The point is this. People will defend their brands, and they'll always try to demonize another brand, which does hook into sort of being a right-winger, but which means no matter what you say, you're like, I'm the nicest person. I love everyone, but you're always tribal. Everyone's always tribal about something. They're probably tribal about things they don't say they are, but they bring the tribalism into every area of their life. And the camera world is just hilarious watching all these progressives yell at each other because someone doesn't have 2 card slots. Now, last thing I want to talk about here on this topic is, of course, a rumor. At the moment, I think the hardware will actually be released tomorrow. Oh, by the way, before I do that, check out, no, this is not it. Check out this beautiful photograph. Will it go there? No, I won't go there. Nikon's advertising photography. I'm just going to kind of zoom in there. You're not going to see a really great resolution. Their advertising photography for their Z series is just next level. Next level. Beautiful. Beautiful. They light it beautifully from the sort of top. So you're not getting an outline on the camera or the lenses necessarily, but you're getting enough on the lens that's curving away because the light is coming from this side. And it looks like they probably have another light here and possibly here, or they have to have lights because there's a lot of light coming in through there and it's really lighting up the lens. They might even do a composite where they're lighting through the lens. So you're seeing the lens elements back to front, but it's just, for a long time, they've done some of the best product photography out there. Certainly when you compare it to somebody like Fujifilm, where I think that their pack shots that, what's his name, Jonas Rosk does, very good, but their general product photography that shows off the new piece of hardware is not terribly good. And if you get used to looking at the Fujifilm ones and then you look at a Nikon or a Canon one, it's just, it's a real big step back. All right, but anyway, let's go to Fuji rumors. Just a moment here. All right. No, I've been doing this whole thing without my headphones on. Hope there's no problems. Let's see here. We're going to go to Fuji rumors. First thing we're going to do is zoom down to, and I mentioned this, by the way, cheers. This is the camera that they just, I think will release tomorrow or something like that. The XS10. Very strange name, very hard to say. Typical for the company. Let's go down here. Where'd it go? There we are. Leaked Fuji known XF10-24 FR or F4R OIS WR images and press release. Fuji rumors get a hold of a whole bunch of stuff. They're basically never wrong. At this point, they're even better than Canon rumors. Good job, Patrick. But we have a lens that has long been a very favorite of a lot of people. And there's a Mark II release. Again, today is the day of the Mark IIs. We got the 50 Mark II firmware update. That's an absolute bomb. There ain't no reason for that camera. Then we got the Z6 Mark II, Z7 Mark II. New processors, dual card slots. Much needed update. However, it would be better if it was just like 6.5 or 7.5, whatever. But then we got this lens, and I think we started on an absolute nadir. The 50 Mark II is just worthless. The Z6 Mark II and Z7 Mark II, it's getting up there. It's like, okay, I can see why Nikon decided to do this. But Fujifilm nailed this. This lens is popular. A lot of people say it's their favorite lens. It performs really well. It's not a perfect lens. It's an XF badge lens, so it's higher quality. It's not the red badge, so it's not it's not the L whatever for Canon. That's very good. What did they do? What is different about this lens? This lens lacked a couple of things back in the day. Now, one thing that the lack of weather resistance wasn't a big problem for me. Now, I've never personally owned this lens. I've used it before. I've not owned this lens. But one thing that bothered me was not the lack of weather resistance. Back in 2012 or 13, when this came out, Fujifilm, as far as I remember, didn't have any properly weather-resistant lenses. And I still think at that time it was kind of a hobby camera system. So when they brought this out, this was kind of one of the few lenses that showed the ex-owners that basically Fujifilm were very serious about the system. And why is that? Well, because 10-24 translates to 15-35, essentially in full frame terms, which is one of the most used wide-angle focal lengths for everything from photojournalism to, like, say, if you're a school photographer and you got to get the classroom, let's say you're doing it, they're doing some Halloween thing, or they're doing some testing. This is a great lens to do that. We used to use this sort of wide angle lens a lot back in the studio I used to work in. And then when I covered, or when I was a Santa Claus one time, the guy that was doing it, basically this sort of lens is the type that's used for a lot of work. And Fujifilm have added some really important things. One, weather sealing, right? Not something that bothers me, but it's something a lot of people have talked about and really wished came onto their lens. The next thing they added, and fair enough, this is a lens a lot of landscape users will use, or photographers will use, and they will put it on their X-T3, X-T4, X-H1, their X Pros, whatever they use for landscape photography. And because of that, they will be in inclement weather, they'll be in the snow, they'll be in the hot sun, there'll be places where there's a lot of fine grit in the air. There's a lot of reasons why you'd want weather sealing. Doesn't make a perfect lens, but it's a nice addition, and it's something that people have been asking for a little while. What's the next thing they've added? Now, I'm going to keep the thing that I'm really excited about till the end. But the next thing they've added is a bit of a lock to the aperture ring. I don't know exactly how it works. I don't know if it locks at any aperture, which would be cool, because a lot of these lenses have a problem, which is they will change. It's very easy to knock the aperture on a lot of these lenses. The 35 1.4 almost changed if you blew on it. Some of the other lenses don't change quite so easily. The 16-55 stays in place pretty well, but you still have to be careful. If this is a lock that allows you to lock at any aperture, that'd be great. If it just does A or some other commands setting, that's fine. But still, it's a nice addition. But the thing that really is necessary and was necessary from the very beginning, and is it's ridiculous that Fujifilm never included it in the original release, is this. They finally labeled the aperture ring. Nathan, come on, that's so stupid, man. Why are you talking about the aperture ring? Okay, I can't remember if I wrote about it at Omimage or whatever. I know I wrote it in the comments to Fujifilm. I know, or Fujirumor, sorry. I know I wrote about it at Deep Preview and all these other places in the comments section. So just, troll, whatever you want to call me. But this is a constant aperture lens. Fujifilm basically the Fujifilm users pride themselves as being like digital users of classic cameras, and their cameras, these cameras that they use, operate like film cameras, and they're so great because they're so easy to use, so easy to understand. You just use it exactly like a film camera. No, you don't. But there's sort of that aesthetic. And one thing that bothered me originally with this lens, and even the various aperture lenses, like the 18-55 or 18-50, I can't remember which one it is, which has the aperture ring. It's unlabeled. The aperture range is 2.8 to f4. If you have a film era camera that is at f2.8 to f4, and there's plenty of those lenses, or f3.5 to f5.6 or 6.3, you'll have still a labeled aperture ring. Pardon me, there's a bit of whiskey here. Yes, the aperture changes. Fine. But there's still a label to give you a range. It's always a single direction. You cannot change the direction. I think at the time, Fujifilm released the lens without any labels to aperture, and the idea was, but you can do it however you want. You can program it so you can twist this way or that way. Isn't that cool? No, it's not. It's ridiculous. You have this lens, an f4 lens. Even if you're like, okay, well, we can't do the labeled apertures on these lenses that have changeable apertures, because on digital, it's immediately obvious. If you have set to f5.6, and because it's variable, it actually goes beyond that to f8 or something like that, it's confusing. Here's my problem with that. You have, and this is something, Nathan, you're a troll. Why are you talking about this again? You're a troll. On your shutter speed dial, you already have, let's say 1/125. That's your label for, what is it? Pardon me. Sorry, Corona. You already have that label, 1/125. But if you nudge the command dial, what happens? Your aperture shoots up or shoots down. So it's already not what it looks like unless you turn off that function within the firmware, which then turns your camera into a full stop only camera, which, I mean, if you're a film guy, yay, you know, but if you're not, then you're basically crippling your camera. So they already have that within their camera. That's already part of the design. And then at that time, the X Pro 1 was the top end camera, and that camera didn't even have a labeled full stop on the shutter ring for flash sync speed, maximum flash sync speed. So you had to actually use a command dial to get there. What's the problem there? The problem there, my friends, is this. You have a system that's telling you, we want to be consistent, and all the users like, we want to be consistent. It's just like a film camera. It's so consistent. I love it. Love it. It's got a couple of areas which are already broken that way. The high-end camera can't even max flash sync speed from the shutter dial, and the aperture ring already, and the shutter speed, all of that, you can accidentally nudge them by using the command dials. So it's already screwed up. But for some reason, even those were already shifty as they were, and all the users were already making excuses for that, just like the Z6 users were like, you know, there's no problem. A single card slot will do you. There's no problem at all. So why are you shouting? You're a troll. And you go over the Sony rumors people, and you're like, you know, I can't really get my finger in between the lens and the mount. They're like, your fat finger, you shouldn't wear gloves. Just buy an L bracket. And it's like, okay, it's a bad design. It should be fixed. What happens? Later on, some years later, Sony fix it. Now Nikon fix it. So those people, they owe apologies, is what I think. And here, Fujifilm have finally added labels to a lens and made it easier to use. It can only be rotated one way. You will always know. Now again, you can nudge it if you don't have if you have it turned off in the firmware, but it will be set essentially to the aperture that you have set it before the camera turns on, which is a big thing that Fujifilm people talk about. The lens used to not have that. It now has hard stops for f4 as well as A setting. And it used to endlessly rotate for some reason, felt like a point and shoot design. They fixed that. The interface on this lens is now basically perfect. The focus ring is wider than the zoom ring. The zoom ring is in the middle, and it's easy to grab. Very nice. It's got a flute design outside, or a horde design outside. It has a gasket, at least at the mount, but probably other places. It has a lock for the aperture. Fujifilm have basically nailed this. Have they fixed anything else? I don't know. Have they, pardon me just a moment. Pardon me about that. Have they fixed anything else? Have they made the autofocus faster? Have they changed anything else? You know what? I don't really care about that. The only thing I really care about with cameras is if the image quality is good enough, great. But more important is how it handles. Fine. The 5D4 I know is not going to handle high ISO as well as a D850 or even a D810. And it's not going to have the dynamic range of some other cameras. Fine. But it handles great. And that's the most important thing for me. It has the 2 card slots, weather sealed, whatever, da-da-da-da-da. With Fujifilm, I've been using them, like I say, since 2013. And I'm the type of person that cares about, it's the holistic thing. The holistic thing has to point to some central unit, some sort of, Marcus, I ignored your comment here. He's like, is your mouse charged? It was my trackpad. It turns out that I have a wireless keyboard that was upside down because I moved it out of the way in order to get my camera stand over here. And it was pressing the space bar. So it was basically canceling out whatever my trackpad put in. So there's no way to charge my trackpad without charging my computer. Just a moment. I'm going to get drunk doing this. All right. But finally, Fujifilm, the modern Fujifilm camera is so much better than the original Fujifilm camera, and the lenses are so much better. There, the classics of the series, the 35-1.4, the 60-2.4, the 18-2, all that, they still exist, and the original 10-24 still exists, and they're all good lenses in terms of performance, etc. But there's a whole bunch of areas where they need to be updated, and this is just. How can anyone complain about what Fujifilm have done here? The 10-24, f4, f2 would be cool. It doesn't exist. That's fine. They've nailed it. Everything they could fix to make this lens better, they've done. They've done it. So how can you complain? Well, let's see. Let's go to Fujifilm and see if anyone has actually complained about this. 200 comments. All right. A lot of people love this lens. Let's see here. Just a moment. Fast, reliable, near silent autofocus. Our engineers go to great lengths to make lenses that will focus accurately and quietly while keeping lens breathing to a minimum. Whether it's being used for photo or video, the new lens is engineered to meet all these needs. Lightweight focusing elements snap into place with the help of high precision motors, and subjects easily remain sharp with the lens reliably holding focus regardless of whether the subject is standing. Doesn't mean anything change inside. Still got cup ED lenses, aspherical. I don't know listen, it's not my lens. But let's go down to the comments, just see if anyone's upset about this. Okay. Let's see. We got a guy saying it's maybe smaller than the old one. Maybe not. I don't know why people are excited about making a lens smaller on these tiny little bodies that Fujifilm have. I mean, the lens is already too big. If you make it smaller, plus the body smaller, it just gets complicated to use. Let's see here. Oh, we got a person complaining that doesn't have an OIS on-off switch. Let's see here. Here we are. It probably doesn't have the OIS on-off switch because it is automatically disabled when the camera detects when it is mounted on a tripod. Too bad for older cameras, though. Listen, I don't own that lens. Never thought about that. But yeah, that might be a problem. Fine. Actually, people are pretty positive here. That's all right. Okay, here we are. Jojo, got a problem with you, man. He says this, or she, who knows, or it, you never know. I welcome there's an upgrade, but it seems rather cosmetic after all these years. Optical design seems the same from the description, although there's the wrong diagram shown. It's the 50 f1.0. He's talking about the website. I don't see that at the moment. It's implied the front element coating has been improved and they no longer have the aperture ring without aperture values. Silliness. What? Not sure what he's talking about. I'm not even going to address that comment. This is, except this. It's not cosmetic. It's so much more. It's the whole handling element is being fixed. I'm not very good at holding like a topic like this real well. So you'll see here. Here we are, Ernest Green. See how he does. Wow. No change in optical design whatsoever. This lens is atrocious, optically speaking, relative to other modern UWAs. I'd have thought Fujifilm would have at least made one more of the elements spherical or something and give it better coatings. If true, this lens will still have soft corners, soft sides, and a weak telephoto end. Ooh. The 2014 Canon 16-35 f2 or f4. Okay. This guy might be a Canon troll. But let's just talk about this here. No change in optical design. Okay, did the lens need optical change whatsoever? A lot of people, if you go down, they're like, they're basically saying the lens is fine. What's your problem? So I'm not gonna. He's probably a Canon troll. Don't want to do that. Come on. You know, there's actually a lot of people positive here. When I read it earlier, should have prepared a little bit better. Here we go. This guy has it. All I expected was weather resistance and aperture ring. Anything else is gravy. I'm buying it. Dude, you got it. All right. You know what? This here, this here one. Basically, when I started this live stream, I was like, you know, it's a little bit of disappointment. And there was. The Z6 had a little bit of disappointment. The M50 was pointless. This lens here, there are actually people who are disappointed, but it looks right. Overall, people are pretty excited about this. And you know what? I think they're absolutely right to be. And this is one of the things, again, in the whole sort of essay or the sort of theme of what Fujifilm are doing. They're fixing or they're righting the wrongs of the past. Now, it takes them 8 years to do it, but they're doing it. Sony were righting the wrongs of their handling, and they're doing it slowly. I think Nikon are still trying to figure things out. They've only had a mirrorless camera for just a couple of years, a high-end mirrorless camera. Canon, the M series, who knows what's going on there, but the R series is basically R5 and R6 are just insanely good. So what I want to say here is that Fujifilm have basically just nailed things. So I'm not disappointed at all. In fact, there's no way I could be disappointed. Except I'm getting out of the Fujifilm world. So basically, I don't know. Got the Canon here. I'm going to be selling off the rest of the Fujifilm stuff. But if I were still in the Fujifilm world, this would be a golden ray of sunshine. That lens is one of the lenses that people have used for a long time, and it's still a great lens, and Fujifilm have improved it. There's no disappointment here, ladies and gents. That is... You know what? I wish there was I wish I had like an angry photographer on here, because he'd bring up. He's really knowledgeable about all this Fujifilm stuff. He knows, you know, he says he takes apart cameras. I don't know about that. He's obviously not a photographer, but he really knows his gear. I wish he were here to be like, Nathan, you forgot about this, you forgot about that. What I want to say is this: it's not all disappointment. The new XS10 or whatever it is. Hard camera to say, sounds like an XT40 or what I would assume to be an XT40. The grip even looks pretty good. It's possibly the best grip in the X series so far. Why is that? Because the grip seems to be thicker. That's something that was a real problem with the XH1. The grip was so narrow, so you had to curl your hands around, and it wouldn't the grip would not be touching flesh the entire way. It'd be touching air. And that's a real problem. So Fujifilm incrementally are fixing problems in the past, and they're doing it at a good pace in the last 2 years. Autofocus is still 3-4 years behind, but everything else they are generally fixing, and they're doing it at a good pace. And so I think whether or not Fujifilm gain any market share, and I don't think that even matters, as long as their user base is happy, they have a camera system that is pushing forward and is going to be ready, that's ready right now, even for the professional. As we know, there's lots of wedding people that use the X series. I don't think there's any sports people that do it. There's a general photographer, there's family photographers, lots of people using the Fujifilm cameras. And they definitely have a release like this where they have a camera alongside a much anticipated lens. Now, of course, this is just a leak. The lens will be, I think, announced tomorrow. So it could be like the Canon M50 Mark II, where it's not like what we expected, but this appears to be actual images, etc. And it appears to be actual specs and all that. So that's good news. And for Fujifilm people, this is like a total white pill. I think, black pill would be you compare the Fujifilm next to a Sony, next to a Canon for autofocus, and it's like, it's bad. You compare it for handling next to even, the modern Sony, it's definitely a step back in terms of like the grip, the feel in the hand, and just sort of the uniformity of all the controls. It's bad. Certainly next to Canon or Sony. The menu systems are in between. They're better maybe than Sony, but they're worse than Canon, definitely. The joystick is bad, but they're slowly fixing things. And you know what is a white pill for me? Since 2013, since picking up the X Pro 1, I have, fine, call me a troll, I have no problem with that. I've been complaining, I want to say like that guy in the wilderness who's like shouting at the gates of that city over there, you guys are doing things wrong, and God's gonna rain fire down here. It's a stupid comparison because I'm definitely not a prophet or anything like that. But the things I've really loudly complained about and have been roundly criticized for 8 years, maybe they don't matter to the general Fujifilm people, but I think that I generally have a good handle on ergonomics. And I think that Fujifilm, I'm not saying they listen to me. I don't think they are, because no one knows me. But they are finally getting people in charge of the design departments or whatever who actually are not just camera users and sort of people interested in a certain look or whatever, but they're people that know how, efficiency should be meted out in hardware design. And efficiency is always good design from the front that doesn't need to be reprogrammed to fit the user base that wants to use it this way or that way. If it's really well designed, you'll not even think of using it in a different manner. Now, a programmable button, sure, have it there, have this there, have that there. But if you can reprogram the entire interface, there's a problem with the original design. So I'm really happy with what they're doing. Now, I do want to talk about one thing here. I did mention that Nikon's, what is it called? Actually, let's go to rooms for a second. Pardon me. Remember, sorry, I didn't do that right. All right. Let's see if we can get canceled. Why do they always want you to do that? I hate that. Do they have, man. Even that, look at this lens photograph. Look at that. I know, okay. So this one, if they're actual, they're not, okay, these aren't individual. This isn't like a group shot actually taken together. It's a whole bunch of individual lenses. Probably, if I look at the way they're, I mean, obviously this is a composite added together later on. And if it is a photograph, if these are actual photographs, you can take them, by the way, this well. It just takes a lot of work. I don't know. Their aesthetics are great. Now see if we can see the cameras down here. This is not a great photograph here, but do we have to go to Nikon? Sorry, guys. The room is posted here. Sorry about this, guys. These are just the product shots, which are not always that great. Let's go to Nikon.com. You should have Nikon.com. Nathan, you know what you're doing? Z5. Let's go to cameras, product solutions. I'm so good at this, man. Imaging products. That's a Z5. Oh, they don't have it updated yet. Come on, guys. That's not right. Lineup. Do they have it? Mirrorless cameras. Z6II. Ooh, they do have it. Let's see here. Overview. I really should come here a little bit more often. So, press library. Forget it. Forget it. What if we go second here? This is high quality work here. Nikon Z6II. Come on, put some cool images here. I just want to get the Nikon one, or the one that they actually do. Freaking awesome. That. Ooh. Oh man. No. I just want to see the image. I just want to see the image. Go back. I want to see the image. How do you see the image? I just want to see the image. Just show me the image. Open image in new tab. Okay. Here. Let's share this tab here. Share the tab. Let's see here. Add. No. Stop screen. Share screen. Chrome tab. This one. Look at that. Man. It's so good. It is so good. Take a look at this image. Just look at this, okay? Just look at that. Okay, so what I do for my living, or what I had done for my living for 6 or 7 years, is this sort of work. Now, to do an image like this is a lot of work. Obviously, it's a composite image, stacking, all that, whatever. But the lighting that Nikon do here, just phenomenal. Just phenomenal. The way they light all of the elements that you can see from the front of this lens. Obviously, this is not a lens that's taken perfect lighting here, snap it away, put it on your stack shot or whatever, and then just edit it later. There's a whole bunch of work into this process in order not only to get this reflection here, but to light this little foot here. Do I have this? I just want to see that I've got this. Okay, good. Got it here. To light that foot there, right there, you need a light coming from the side, and it can't be the same one that you see here that's lighting the top of the lens there. It has to be directed. They didn't want that foot to disappear under the body of the lens. They didn't want that. They wanted to show up separate. So you see that the foot has 2 drill holes in it. Great. Amazing. All of these, all the fonts, etc., the typography, all of that is perfectly lit. Now, either they took several different exposures. It's often what I would do. I would take maximum of 5 different shoot sessions of a single object. One for the shadows, one for the mids, one for the highlights, one for the super highlights. And then after you compress all the stacked stuff, then you'd have 5 images, and then you would, slowly bring out the details that you wanted for an image like this. And then, of course, they have to do the background, like just cleaning up an image like this from all the dust. You can have a perfectly clean environment. There's going to be dust, that sort of thing, smudges that you don't see in the photograph. So much work, and these photographs are just brilliant. Look at the texture on the grips. You can immediately see what the lens is going to be like to handle. And the white balance and the color, they've got it set so it's not too much blue coming out. There's not too much yellow coming out. It's basically set for a greenish grayish, but just barely. It's mostly gray. It's just so bloody good. So good. The product photography in the last 5 years has jumped up in quality so bigly. Now, if we were to compare that, if we go back to, and this is kind of sad, let's go back to Fuji rumors here and just look at the 14 to or 10 to 24. Even, you know what? Even look at this. This is okay. This is just a product shot, like you'd put on a pamphlet or whatever. Don't even bother with that. It's even there. I don't know. Nikon's and Sony's work is just so much better. So much better. This is horrible. Horrible. Anyone with a camera and a couple of flashes could do that. But this, let's see if we can check out this. I can't. How do I copy image, save image as? No, let's just let's kind of zoom in a bit. That you can tell here. Fujifilm, come on, guys. You have some of your products look pretty cool. Some of them work now pretty cool. When you have a new product come out that's gonna advertise your brand, you can't have this sort of like bluish thing going on here. This blue stripe here. Is this showing, by the way? I just want to make sure we're showing. Okay, good. Can you see my mouse as well? Hopefully you can see my mouse, guys. Hopefully you can see my mouse. You can't have this blue. You can't have that blue. That's horrible. You can't have this blue stripe here, which could be a person. It could be a person standing right next to the camera or the reflection. That could be it. You can't have these harsh or semi-harsh sort of reflections that go here. It has to be slowly gradiented it in. And you do that with large reflectors. You do that by, you can move your lights away. There's a million ways you can soften it. This is bad. You can't go from blue here to yellow. You can't go from blue to this banana like stain to your gray. You can't have blue and gray. And one thing I noticed with all my Fujifilm cameras is even if you sync up, you change the white balance, you change the colors using whatever, you have it all figured out, you take the photograph, the Fujifilm for some reason shows out blue. And maybe they shot it with a Fujifilm camera, I don't know. It doesn't matter. For their own press stuff, it doesn't matter. It can be taken with a Phase 1, it can be taken with a Canon, Nikon, doesn't matter. But this, whoever they're hiring to do this stuff, and even their bodies, whenever they take the photograph, again, the pack shots that Jonas Ross does are very good, sorry. They're blue. He needs to fix that. Sometimes there's dust, but they're kind of quick shots that you just kind of do to get an atmosphere. But this stuff is just, it doesn't look good. It looks like the sort of advertising photograph that you'll see around 2008 or 9. It's better than stuff from 2004 or 5, where you will see, it's very obvious that they cut the cable here for like an earphone to stick out, and they worked very hard to make with a Polaroid maybe preview, etc. But like this is it's horrible. I would never want to advertise. If this is on a blog, fine. You shoot this for a blog, looks great for your blog. It's like, wow, that guy actually worked hard. And there's a couple things they've actually did here that's actually nice. This down here on the mount, it's instead of uber shiny, they've muted it here. It looks to be that there's some sort of like weird composite thing where the lens is bending up a little bit. I don't know what that is. It could be, my guess is they took a 3D rendered image and they for some reason use that at the bottom of the lens. Maybe I'm misreading this. But if you're going to do that, why not just use a 3D render image? As a photograph, this is just bad. You're getting right at the edges here. That shouldn't be highlighted right there with a bit of like, that should not be light. That's ridiculous. That should not be light. That should be dark. If it's going to be light, it should be a nice white light. Anyway, one thing that has bothered me for the longest time with Fujifilm is their product shots are horrible. They're just 10 years behind. Their autofocus 3 years behind, 4 years behind. Their product photography is just redonkulous. So it's and whenever I go back, whenever I look at like Fujifilm or Nikon stuff, it's just, man, it's so beautiful. And Canon's is also very good. I think Nikon probably, in terms of making a contrasty and just like really dynamic and interesting looking image, where you want to touch that piece of, you might even be salivating. Now, I'm not saying that's a good thing. If you don't need the piece of hardware, if you don't need a new lens, you don't need a camera, it's really, one of the things I've had a hard time as a commercial photographer was I made many people I met, especially in the audio world, would be like, your photographs made me want to buy that thing. And I was like, it's a $3,000 earphone, or that's a $5,000 speaker, or that's a, even if it's $100 earphone, it's like, I'm happy that they like my work, but at the same time, it's like, did you need that? You need that. I mean, I have an article in a couple of days coming out, maybe a video about Fit Ear, which are a local Japanese custom IEM, as well as, what else do they do? Dentures. They make dentures, tooth replacements, as well as, what is it called? Hearing aids. They do all that stuff. And they have an earphone that released 3 years ago, which is called Titan. It's made out of titanium. It's actually a very staid design, not very dynamic. The sound is great. It's a very expensive earphone. Their photography is not very good, but they're not worried about that sort of thing. It's not about their image. They sell things based on their reputation, and they have a lot of fans that just really love the brand, both here in Japan as well as abroad. And it's a 3-year-old earphone, and I can already anticipate people saying, why are you reviewing a 3-year-old earphone? Well, this is my take on things. If a thing was good 3 years ago, it's still good today. It's not any worse. There are things that, in comparison, perform better, but that product is not any worse. Now, it's not like you can grade on a scale that like goes from 100% is best like deep reviews seem to have been doing. And then eventually you're going to have to go above 100 because some product in the past got 100 or got 98. So it's not like that. But my favorite earphones are from 2008. They're the CK10. They were $160 back then. On the used market, same price now. When it comes to cameras, if a camera worked 3 years ago well, and there were no problems with it, it'll work just as good today as long as the hardware is not failing you. One thing I noticed when I picked up the 5D4, as I'm selling the other stuff, is the autofocus is actually better than the XD3 in most scenarios. Focus is better in the dark. The AI focus somehow picks up faces. Have no idea how it does that. Through the OVF, when I'm doing follow focus for sports and stuff, or not sports, but at the moment just doing it with my daughter, it focuses better, more reliably. It doesn't have as fast shutter speed, or like it doesn't go up to 11 frames per second. It only does 7. So you miss some things, but it's I don't know. It's just more reliable. And one of the things about mirrorless cameras, definitely I've noticed, is that, like I said, what used to be a 4-year cycle is now 2-year, and so people start thinking that their hardware, it's something they've used and known and is reliable to them or whatever, doesn't work as well. And everyone knows, they're like, no, it still works the same, and they'll always come in. I didn't know that my XT3 from 2 years ago doesn't work anymore. But they're not going far enough. The new thing comes out and everyone forgets. That's what everyone's emphasis is on. And maybe there's a whole bunch of problems everywhere else, but that it's like this hyper focus. Like when the news changes cycles, they don't want you to focus on this real bad thing over here that's destroying society. So they'll bring something up else that they know will divide the left and the right and the ups and the downs, and they'll focus on that so that people forget the real problem. And then people will be arguing about masks. It's like, that's not the problem, it's not like that. So, and this happens in the hardware world. You bring out a new piece of hardware, maybe, so that someone doesn't look at this other piece of hardware from somewhere else, or maybe it fixes over something that is a problem within your own design or whatever. It's always a give and take between truth, fact, as well as what's actually necessary in the world. And so I don't like this fast cycle. I don't like it. What could be 4 years and a really good product that really changes things and makes things easier in 4 years becomes a poorer product in 2 years that doesn't do things quite as well, that's not as well thought out, but is just released so that you have a new product when everyone else is releasing a product. Fityear they don't operate on that same modus operandi, this earphone company. They release a product when it's ready, generally. I don't get the opinion that they try to keep up with any of their neighbors. They do it real well, and I think that's good. At the same time, no one needs a $2,000 earphone. No one needs a $900 earphone or whatever. So, there's that. Anyway, that's my rant about these new cameras that are coming out. The new lenses, I think Fujifilm nailed it. That's something they absolutely had to fix with the 10-14 or 10-24. Sorry, I think they nailed it. Fujifilm, you've done a real damn good job. Nikon, you've done a decent job. They needed that extra card slot. It's really good to have. Absolutely. I've never had a card fail whilst working at an event or something like that. I've had something fail whilst I was shooting in the studio, but I can just use a new card. But that's something that people have talked about. Adding a new processor will make things faster. Canon M50 Mark II, rubbish. It appears to be something that's just a firmware or just a piece of software, and that's stupid. So that's pointless. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about that. Unless anyone has any questions, we're going to go up here. Victor he said this. Recently, I got Leica polarizing microscope with 4 times, 10 times, and 40 times magnification lenses and adopted the Canon camera to the eyepiece. You're probably getting some insane photographs there. With a microphone stand, of course, it's going to be much more stable than using a camera stand with a disconnected piece like here. Usually, if I'm going to do some serious macro, what I would do is I would basically attach, you can't see here because of the microphone. Hopefully you can still hear me. But here at the base of this thing, either under here, I would put a plate that would come out like this, or right under here. If I did it under the base plate, what would happen is I could put the thing out here and then I could still rotate the camera separately, and it would make it more easy for focusing. It's not quite as stable as if I went from under here. But then the camera as well as the object are in the same focal plane, and I cannot rotate anything. The camera is, I would have to make sure the camera's at a fully functional spot. I don't have to change anything else, but that way is absolutely the most stable. But it's not quite as helpful for if you need to change either framing or focus or anything. So you put it under here, make a plate, and you can still rotate the camera. But if I'm using just the camera stand and then putting something on a separate table, I'm not going to do macro that way. It's just, there's too many things that can go wrong. As Victor, you probably know. Now, next after that, Marcus was like, hey, is it charged? We figured that out. It was a trackpad. It's attached to my computer. It was a keyboard that was upside down. That was a problem. Victor, I love how Nikon handles RAW files. Yes, man, I've said this before in live streams and some other stuff. The Nikon D800 that I used to have in 2012, 13, same sensor as the Sony A7R. That thing I could compare back to back, and the D800, the raw files were better. Now, Sony had a problem with the raw files. Evidently, they were some sort of compressed and not lossless, but like lossy RAWs. So there was some problem. I noticed immediately the first time I used it, there was a color blotchiness. The gradations between color were, instead of fine, like basically shining from different illuminations, it was just a blotch. It was horrible. The Nikons just look great. But surprisingly, again, I can take my D800 image, and I can compare it back to back with the GFX 50S, and the 50S is better. Yes, it is sharper slightly, using similar lenses. Again, all adapted, all duplication lenses or replication lenses. But the difference is so minute, and the files were very similarly able to be. I could raise the shadows. The highlights are better on the GFX. I can raise them or lower them, whatever. But the D800s are very, very good. The amazing raw files, and they're they work in any software. Canons aren't quite as good, but whatever. If you shoot well, still works. It just can't do as much later on. Let's see, let's scroll down. Mark H. I was thinking that Mark H. Good to see you, man. Thank you very much for the comment on Instagram. I have not been using it recently. Got to work on that. Your work is phenomenal. I can't believe you're actually. I cannot believe you're here. I cannot believe I'm graced by. I wish I could bring up his Instagram. I don't want to screw up this live stream anymore. Mark H. Put your Instagram here in the chat for people to go check it out. It's really good stuff. And if people don't get that, you can do it in the chat or the comments later on. These aren't the most popular live streams, but anyway, your stuff is incredible. So it's very nice to have you here. Jonas Rosk product shots for Fuji are pretty on point. Yeah, they're very good. They're the atmosphere he nails. I think he's one of the best for the atmosphere, but the colors are always skewed blue. You'll notice that. I think his pack shots are some of the best I've seen out there for sure. I don't really have anything negative to say about his stuff. Sometimes you can tell he should have cleaned up a piece of dust or whatever, but yeah, he does a very good job. Jacob, hey, good to see you again, Jacob Christensen. Kiersey, what do you think about the Panasonic SR1 like SL2? They seem to be awesome cameras, overshadowed by worse, not bad autofocus when compared to competitors. I haven't gone back to I haven't gone to Leica shop since the whole quarantine thing happened. So I haven't handled an SL2. However, I'll just say this from the looks. Those 4 buttons around the screen on the original SL made handling that camera brilliant. Each one having 2 functions that you can program. Each one having a programmable function via long press. And the short press is being baked in. Amazing. The interface is incredible. The joystick, amazing. There's some things I wish they added, like I wish you had external controls for C, S, and M. Fine. They don't have that. The new one, they've gotten rid of those 4 buttons. And I think those 4 buttons really, really defined what the SL was in terms of a handling camera. And if you program it well, I found that, yes, it's slightly slower than using a camera that you can immediately touch, like to change a switch, like the Panasonics, where you can change the C, like I said, the CS and the M focus controls. Yes, but if you did it right and you knew everything about SL, it was faster to use than the Canon. It's faster to use than the Fujifilm. It's just really well laid out. But they got rid of those. From a handling perspective, again, I haven't actually handled it, but from a theoretical handling perspective, I'm not happy about what they did. So that's kind of, I think it's kind of a shame. Let's see here. In terms of, they seem to be awesome cameras. Yeah, I mean, I've handled the S1R. It's great. I think that Panasonic they basically nail the interface. Now, Leica, it's getting cold now. What? Modern technology, man. Leica nail simplicity in interface and nail what you need, basically. Panasonic add things on top of that to make it maybe easier to use if you need to change the sort of orientation and the use of the camera from moment to moment. Leica are not able to keep up with that, certainly with the M, but the M is really a specialized tool. You can use it, you can do, I've done product photography with the not the M10, M240 and the M10. And that was what made me immediately realize that Fujifilm's white balance, even flash synced, is crap. Leica nailed it. It was a perfect gray tone throughout everything instead of this horrible blue. Yeah, so I'm sure the output, I mean, we've all seen the comparisons with the S1R and the SL2 on D Preview and other places, and that the output is incredible. Autofocus, their AFS stuff is faster than Fujifilm. It's probably as fast as the fastest cameras out there. Once you're tracking, they're not as good. We know that. So overall, I haven't handled the SL2. I've only handled the SR1. The autofocus really is kind of, it really is something to think about. But the feeling of those cameras is incredible. The SL blew me away. There's a couple things. The paint on it rubbed away quicker. They use basically a very similar paint to like the M series, which on the M series, it looks great when the paint is rubbing away. You get the brassing, looks amazing. It looks like a classic camera, but the SL looks, it's an SL, it's a workhorse SLR replacement. I want it to have the sort of crinkle powder coat that you get with like a XH1, an XT4, even these Canon ones, which aren't quite as well protected in their paint coat, but something like that, which will survive abuse better. Than the Nikons are also very, very good. So at this point, I gotta, in 2015, when the SL was released, that camera, and still when I went back to CP Plus in 2019, there's 2019, 2020 now, yeah, 2019, comparing it with all the other cameras at that time, the Z6, Z7, all these other cameras, even the new Panasonics, it held up really well. But in 2020, if you have a camera that has the same sort of paint thing, they've taken away the 4 buttons. I think they've actually gone back. The paint thing is the same, fine. But taking away the 4 buttons, I think it's actually gone back away. The resolution is great. All the firmware functions are incredible. The firmware software thing is incredible. Their applications for phone are incredible. I mean, Leica really nailed the user interface in general. I think, though, this time maybe they've taken a step back. That's what I think. I haven't handled it, so take that with a grain of salt. Mark H. AF is really bad in difficult lighting with SL2. Tested myself. Camera feels great though. When you mean the AF, do you mean AF on moving subjects or in static? Because, pardon me, if you have the thing in, like, if you use with a Canon, for instance, and a Nikon, I always basically have an AFC, and I just change like from point to zone or whatever, and it works generally perfectly well. With the Leica, I found if you have an AFS, it'll focus really well in the dark, but AFC, it's just not reliable in the dark. In the light, as you notice, the viewfinder will vibrate like this, and you'll be like, there's no way this isn't focused. You take the photograph, you look at it, it's like, oh, it's perfectly in focus. So it's kind of the interface, the experience with DFD is, it's kind of rubbish. No, it's not rubbish. Let's not say that. It's not rubbish. It's disconcerting because looking through the viewfinder, beautiful viewfinder, by the way, when you're trying to track an object, even if it doesn't look like it's following it, but you take your photographs and you pray, you got faith and all that. Turns out they're in focus. But it doesn't follow things as well. If it's following somebody running this way or going that way, no problem. But as soon as you add in a bunch of people and it's got to follow a certain subject, it's not going to be as good. So yeah, for AFS, absolutely, I find it perfect. But on a static object in dark light, you change to AFC and suddenly it's not as good. And of course, you can play around with the size and everything. I found, though, basically the SL2 was easily as good as the XT3 on static subjects in dark, and the viewfinder would update even faster, in fact, than the XT3. So as far as that's concerned, yeah, no problem. But if the SL2 does have those problems, and I'm not sure if you had enough time to test out all those things, Mark, but you know, I assume they didn't go back, but whatever. Yeah. Okay. So let's go here. AF is really bad. That's about the SL2. Thanks for that feedback, Mark. Thanks, dude. Yeah. Everyone check out his stuff. He's put his link here. It's Mark Holstein on Insta, lots of automotive stuff. Yeah, really good stuff. Like some nostalgic lighting that makes you enjoy the car, but also sort of enjoy the mood. It's kind of like one of those holistic photographs that I'm not going to say it's like the de jour or whatever. It's more than that. It's nostalgia packed in with either cool looking people, good looking people, good looking cars, and generally really well placed subjects. It's good stuff. It's definitely worth the follow. And I assume I followed you after saying all that. And then we have I'm not gonna, man, I'll say your name. I'll say it, and then I'm gonna get in trouble. Virat of Liz. I'm gonna say it like the V's are U's. How's that? Viriatus of Lusitania. All right. I know that's not the right way to say it, but that's Viriatus. We'll say Viriatus if we can do that. What's your opinion on the first generation Sony A7? Still up to today's standards, or is it already to consider ancient? Thanks. Love the channel. Well, thank you very much for that first. All right. That's cool. That's cool. I'm glad you love the channel. I need to work on it a lot more. But that's very nice. I feel it right here. Okay, so A7 has the same problem the A7R has, and that is, okay, from an output perspective, the RAWs are not good RAWs. They're, pardon me, the RAWs are not good. And that is saying that they're either compressed lossy, or they're just like, or they're like a JPEG extra. They're horrible. Now, if you look at them when they're not blown up, you just see the back of the screen, or you look at your computer screen, it's not zoomed in, they look fine. But if you're using it professionally, like I was using my A7R professionally, you're working after you worked with a D800. And I chose the A7R over the D800, despite, they had basically the same sensor and all that, because when I was doing macro and I wanted to be able to stack focus and I wanted to get things right very easily, the D800 was impossible to focus from the back screen. When you turn on live view, it's just awful, just horrible. And so when I moved to the A7R, it was smooth, it was fluid, there was so much more detail, you could zoom in way farther. You know what? I think I may have done. Let me just try to link something in here. See if DuckDuckGo can do this for me. Image D800 A7R. See if I can link that in here. And you know what? Maybe we'll look at that just very quickly. I hope that's all right. Let's see here. Stop screen here. VRU. Okay, cool. Share. Wait, how do I do this? All right. Oh, yeah. Okay, guys. Share screen. Chrome tab. Live view. Here we are. Hopefully we can see this. Okay. This is just from my blog. As you can tell, this is blue. I took this with a X Pro 1, and it wasn't it's not an image I was selling. It's just a crap thing for my blog, but it's got a D800 with an A7R. Now, the reason I moved to the A7R from the D800 is this. Do I have this? Just make sure it's looking okay. Good. Is this here? As you can tell, actually, it's not a very good. Here we go. Basically, side by side, this is what they look like. The D800 is starting to get dark here, and the A7R, they got the. I believe they're the same exposure and all that. I should check, but they should be. But when you go down, you're zoomed in. Pardon me, just again. Sorry. Whiskey. When you're zoomed in here, there's very little detail at 100% or 400% or whatever this is for the D800. If you actually took an image from the sensor, it would be perfectly sharp, and you would think you could zoom in farther. But with the D800, this is as far as you could get in. So if you really want to do fine focus on a very specific thing, horrible. Plus, the update was very slow. With the A7R, this is not the best maybe explanation of this, but as you can see, even though it looks like the D800 is getting closer here, the A7R has way more resolution on the back screen, and it was way easier to see the details of the thing that you want to shoot. Look at the texture of this. What is this? I guess, what am I actually shooting here? Oh, I was shooting, I think, a lens cap, something like that, on the front of a camera. So you can't really tell. It looks like either noise or maybe like a really prehistoric bump mapping system. That's what it looks like in the D800 for the texture of this lens cap. But on the A7R, you see it pretty good on the back here. And then if the lights go down and you have to do, like, if you're doing audio equipment, you want to get the screen to pop out, as well as you want to get the whole thing to show. So if you're shooting like an iPhone and you want to show the screen, what you got to do is, now a lot of times people they'll just take the phone and then some graphic designer will paste in a screen. But the way that has traditionally been done is you would take two separate images. You take the phone, and then you take a separate image of same time, just as after that you take like a 3-second exposure with the lights, same flashes going the same way, and then you would either superimpose on them, or you do a whole bunch of different things, but basically you needed that. So in order to focus in such a situation in low light, you need to have a camera that can actually show something on the back screen. The D800 in low light, you could no longer focus through the back screen. And the Sony, you could. Not great, but it was much better for that. But the output for them was just day and night. Again, the Sony was horrible compared to the. Oh, I should probably here. I'll just put the link in here. See here. There's the link going up there. I have not updated the blog in a very long time. I probably should do that. I'm paying. It's only $9 a month or $8 a month, but. I probably should do more with that. Sorry about that I'm not. But anyway, when it came to output, though, the difference in output from the D800 to the A7R is not as big, for instance, as you see in that the live view looks on the back of the screens. However, that's a really good way to sort of describe it. The A7R output, if you're doing professional work, is just blotchy compared to the D800. So that's how I would say that. The handling, you're talking about the A7, of course. The handling is it's not bad. But what would bother me 8 years on is it really feels like Sony were still toying with the idea of going mirrorless with a full frame. It didn't feel like they were really investing into making you feel like you could use it professionally. It really did feel like a lot of mirrorless cameras back then, it was really just a hobby project, side project for them. So handling is not great, but if you want to use a camera with adapted lenses or even native lenses, and you don't worry so much about autofocus speed or even quality, I really enjoyed using that camera around town, taking pictures of my wife. Didn't have my daughter back then. Wish I did. Wish I would have started on that earlier. It was great. It was just great. Loved using old Nikon lenses with it. It was good for, that camera earned me, looking back, how much that earned me? I don't know, some tens of thousands of bucks. So it was good. It was a good camera. That was A7R though. Whatever. Next question. Appreciate the detailed answer. Wow, cool. I did some. Next, Mark H is on static stuff with backlight. Again, is it AFS or AFC? Whatever. And then Viratus is like exactly the VRU. Cool. All right. And perfectly boring. Would you be disappointed with the Fujifilm X system if you came from the A7 III or similar? Oh, that's such a broad question. The A7 III, again, I try to hold it, and I don't have the thickest fingers. They're flat on the top. Not sure why. Comes from my dad's side of the family. But they're narrow. I'm not a man from 1900 who wields a hammer and a shovel. Since the time I'm a metrosexual guy, born in the tail end of Generation X. Grew up, and there was a word called couch potato already. People played video games. The hardest guys out there, they did construction with automatic tools. So like, there's no man out there like there was a man 100 years ago. So I'm just a normal guy, and my hands go in. And the A7 III, just without gloves, I could just put on any old zoom lens, and suddenly the lens and my finger are stuck together, and after a while it hurts. Again, angry photographer. I hated his review of the A7 III. He was completely wrong when he did the comparison images. He obviously misfocused and said it was a fair comparison. That was bull. But he did show a mark on his finger. Now, he's a big guy, so his fingers are probably bigger as well. And I wouldn't probably, sorry, I'm not trying to do that, but I probably wouldn't get a mark here like he did, or blood, but I would definitely get, probably after a day of work, if I was out in the field like this on an event, I would get a callus from the A7 III. It's just a bad design. The lens is too close. The lens mount is too close to the grip. It's horrible design from a pragmatic perspective. Disgusting. There's a bunch of things that are nicer about it. The joystick quality is better. Autofocus quality is way better. It's still better than anything Fujifilm have now. Faster, more reliable, better at eye autofocus. The focus from the A7 III as it came out in 2018 is better than anything Fujifilm have right now, and probably will be better than anything they have for the next 2 or 3 years. I can't guarantee it, but I would, if I was stupid enough to wager money, I would wager that. When it comes to what else, battery life is way better. As we know, the what is it called? Weather seeing is not as good as Fujifilm's upper end cameras. The grip quality, it's small. The grip is bad. The body is too short. It's give and take. It's a real give and take. Image quality is going to be way better on the A7 III than anything from Fujifilm. Just absolutely. I mean, you can go to deep preview and do the studio scene, take the highest end Fujifilm X camera, whether the best one is a 24 or a 26 megapixel, compare it directly to a Canon EOS R6 with a 20 megapixel, and the lower megapixel camera will be sharper. The images will be better able to print it larger, etc. The full frame is just, the image quality is just way better. And it's not like, I mean, it's not like the people who have the GFX who like, they swear they came from full frame to GFX and say it's better. There's no way they did. They came from APS-C. I don't believe it. It's good, but it's not the huge step up that going APS-C to a modern full frame is. In fact, back to back, I showed this either in a live stream earlier on, the 5D2 from 2008, as long as you're not bumping up the blacks, which does not work because it just suddenly you get a grid pattern. As long as you're not doing that or doing a lot of high ISO work, base ISO is more detailed, better looking than base ISO for an XT3. XT3 is 24 megapixels. It's better than XT4. And that's a 21 megapixel camera from 2008 rather than 2018 or 2020. So in terms of output, full frame is always going to just completely destroy APS-C. Now, of course, there's a bunch of benefits. APS-C, because you have narrow depth of focus, if you want to do portraits, you can get more in focus, and that is a real big benefit, and still have a good blur. And you're not going to have, if you do in full frame, you're like, your APS-C person will shoot 1.2, and it'll be like 1.8 or f2 on full frame. But on your full frame, you're not going to have a portrait lens that's f2. It's going to be 1.4 or 1.2. So you're going to have to stop it down to f2 to get the same amount of depth of focus. And when you do that, all your highlights are going to be octagonal or not polygonal instead of smooth. So there's some real benefits to that. Depends on what you want to do. If you want to do sports, A7 III is going to destroy anything. XT4, XT3, doesn't matter. Battery life is way better. Portraiture, well, it's always going to lock on the eyes, way better. Video quality is definitely better on the Fujifilms. It's sharper, but the autofocus is not as good. Build quality, A7 III is not as good weather sealed, but it's pretty solid camera. Yeah. I don't know. Honestly, I would go for the A7 III, but I don't really like Sony at the moment. They haven't done anything that's... If they had from the beginning nailed the handling, I would probably just say Sony for sure, but they haven't. They're slowly getting there, and I think that's rubbish that they've taken so long. Anyway, let's see here. So A7 III, absolutely. But if I could, it'd be... it's a lot more expensive, of course, is the Canon R6. Thanks for the detailed answer. I was given old A7 from my brother, and I quite like it. Good. I'm glad you like it. Planning to buy a Metabones adapter for Canon EF lenses? Yeah, of course. If you can use the old lenses, and listen, if you're not doing professional work that requires you to be fast and to be able to nail a whole bunch of situations all at once, and you still could do that with A7. For instance, when I started out my event photography business, I was using a D800 with manual lenses. And I was shooting at the British Embassy in Tokyo and doing weddings and stuff. And I was getting, I was using AIS-28 lenses, like lenses from the 70s. And I was next to guys that were using much faster, much more expensive lenses. But that's what I had. And I made it work. And it also made the transfer to Leica, which I did in 2015, so 3 years later, very easy, because I was already used to manual focus. I was already used to metering in a different way, etc. So it just worked out well. So yeah, you could still do professional stuff, no problem with an A7. It's just, I think the handling is not good on that thing. So yeah. And let's see here. Would you say, this is from Perfectly Boring, would you say the Canon R5 is a substantial upgrade compared to what Sony offers for less? The Canon seems nice, but the RF lenses are huge and expensive. Yeah, they are. They're ridiculous. One thing with the R series that really bothers me is the fact that Canon they've released some very nice bodies now. The original R was, I think the ergonomics was very good, except for the AF on placement. And of course, they liked joystick, and they didn't have the wheel on the back, so there's some problems. And of course, it was single card only. And if there was things like there's a blackout, and if you used adapted lenses, there would be a greater blackout, and it would only do 5 to 3 frames per second, whatever. The battery life was good, much better than Fujifilm, but not as good as Sony. But the new R6 and the R6 is R5. Okay, so you're talking about R5, high resolution. I've compared them back to back. A D preview fine with the GFX, and I'm sure there's a difference there. Let's say it's 10%. You're never going to see that in any field. 10% better. 10% better shadows. 10%, sharper image. You're never going to see that difference. I think when it gets to like 50% or a full stop, something like that, then it's like it's huge difference. But 10%. There's no way it's more than that. The R5 is incredible. Now, next to Sony, well, that's a good question. Like, I guess you're comparing it to Sony A7R4. What is it? 10 more megapixels, or is it more than that? The R5 is it 45? Can't remember exactly. I haven't really been looking at that one seriously because it's just, I'm trying to exit out of the stuff I was doing. Whatever the megapixel difference is, you're not going to see a huge difference there. But if you need the 60, fine. In terms of what I've seen is that the blacks can be boosted better with Sony, but not much better. I think Canon have basically caught up. But when it comes to basic handling, the Canon is just, it's leagues ahead of the Sony. The Sony still has, even though they've moved the grip farther apart, it's still too close. The quality of the other buttons and the interface is slower to use. The menus, they're better. They've gotten better, but they're still not as good as Canon's. In terms of, and then there's the transitions from like outside to inside if you're doing video. Canons are smoother still. I don't know. In very short order, I've become a Canon guy just because it's boring to say that I use Canon. It's boring. It's boring. Canon is like the most boring brand in a way, because of the largest one, and it's like the easiest one to pick on, and everyone uses Canon, and all the girls that never talk about cameras, they're always using Canon, and blah 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 blah. But there's a reason why it has what 40% or 50% of the market. It is so good, so reliable, so reliable. Yeah, I would take a Canon, absolutely, but that doesn't mean that will be right for you. Yeah, so the lenses, of course, are ridiculous. If I went right now, if I had the money and I was like, I'd like to use a mirrorless instead of this, and right now I think tentatively I will stay with the SLR for, if I get really back into photography, if my business picks up again, who knows? We'll see. If it doesn't, I'm fine where I am at the moment, and I'm fine even if I had to quit photography, because I think I may have had enough for a while. But what was I gonna say? What was I saying, man? Yeah, sorry. I would use adapted EF lenses. They're very good. Some of them are incredible lenses that can absolutely out-resolve a 40 megapixel sensor, maybe 50, maybe even higher. I don't know. Even some of these third-party, like this Sigma here, is actually almost as good on a small sensor as, say, and I don't have it with me right here, or do I? It's just a moment. Right. So this is the best macro lens I've ever used. This is the Schneider 120 f5.6. It covers 4x5, so it's incredible that it's actually as sharp as it is. It's basically with the Sigma 150 2.8. This is a little bit sharper, but they're basically neck and neck. This one you can push farther. You can go 3 times and it's still really sharp. But of course, it's 5.6, which makes focusing really hard because you have to feed a lot of light down there. Otherwise, the image is going to just get choppy. But yeah, there's a lot of great lenses for the EF system. And the R system is really expensive, and they're big. Yeah, sure. So I would just use an adapter. They seem with the R6 and the R5 to work really well. I'd have to go like properly test that down at Yodobashi or something like that. But from all reports, they seem to work really well. And there's some, like I said, just some really good classic lenses for the EF system. And I don't think you would have any problem using them on those. Sure, they'd be bigger, but you could add the control, that little control adapter, and get a lot of the functionality that you would get from the R system, but have the control adapter closer to the body and easier to use. So that sounds pretty damn good to me. What Sony have, let's see, this is also from Perfectly Boring. What Sony have going for them is a lot of third-party lenses like Sigma and Tamron, whereas Canon has EF lenses that you can adapt. Yeah, and those third-party lenses for the EF system that you can use on your EF camera, you can also use, of course, on your R5 and R6, no problem. At least it appears. I think Sigma have mentioned that that not all of their lenses, their EF lenses, work quite as well. So, there's definitely benefits to Sony, and it looks like Sony's mount is more open. So at least a lot of other companies are supporting it with actual native lenses. And when you say native lenses, here's a problem. Another problem I have here. Problem with mirrorless in general is, especially if you talk about, say, Fujifilm world, or let's say Canon R world, there's a lot of native lenses. What that means, back in the day, they would say native. They'd be like, the native, but they're not from Fujifilm. Well, what do you mean by that? Well, it has a native X mount. Okay, so what X functionality does it use? And you're like, well, nothing really. But you can put it on your X mount without an adapter. It's like, so it's basically an EF lens with an adapter, but there's no electronic contacts. Is that what I'm hearing? And then they're like, yeah, but it's native. You don't have to. It was like, well, why don't you get the EF lens or the lens meant for a different mount that other people might use on cameras that everyone has, and they just use an adapter? And they're like, so the whole native thing is being redefined as Sony now, and a whole bunch, and some other companies are now getting actual Sigma, actual Tamron, like you said, actual other brand lenses for their cameras that are not, they're technically third party, but they're, they have all the native calls, etc. And that's really great. And the Sony, I mean, that's a huge benefit of the Sony system. I don't know how good they are next to the Sony. A lot of these old lenses for the EF are, how do I say it? They're not as reliable. They don't look as good. The finish is not as good. But it looks like the ones that Sigma, etc., have done now for the Sony system are they seem to be doing pretty good. So yeah, I mean, that's a huge benefit. And who knows if R will ever open up like that. I have a feeling that because Canon are a lens company, was it Nikon or Canon that were doing the bodies first? One of them was doing the bodies first and one was doing the lenses first, and they were both doing copies of German cameras, either Zeiss or Leica, whatever. But like, they're kind of both a similar position at the moment. But I can't imagine that Canon will open their mount like Sony would. Sony needed the user base. They opened their mount. I think it's a smart idea. So yeah, let's see here. If you're going to pick up an R, again from Perfectly Boring, if you're going to pick up an R5 and R6, wait. Don't buy it now, for sure. One thing, R5 right now is still not in stock. R6 is now, I think, out of stock in Japan. And I've noticed that the used prices for both cameras are way more expensive than the new prices because no one has them in stock. People want them, and they will pay through the roof or to the teeth or whatever to get one. So people who had them brand new in September are probably laughing now because they can sell them for quite a big markup. I think I saw an R5 go for $5,500 a couple of weeks ago here in Japan, and the R6 is going for way north of 3,000. The regular price is 3,000 basically. The yen and the dollar are right neck and neck. So it's crazy that a Japan-made Japan camera is the same price, or sorry, more expensive than it is in the US. But if you buy it used, it's more expensive still. So yeah, wait. Canon, generally, the market seems to quickly adapt to, because there's so many people using it, probably because of that, there's a lot more market feedback, and people are willing to or not willing to jump into a new thing based on the price. And so the prices do fall faster than some other brands do. So sometimes, but they steady quicker as well. So what used to be 3,500, like this thing here, will be 2,400 in a year or two, and then it will just even out and never change again. So I like that. Yeah, I would wait though for a while and use your EF lenses, and eventually those other lenses will go down, maybe. And who knows? Who knows? In this time next year, it could be that there's a thing that's being defined around the world called the new normal. And it could be that we're all living in pods, and everyone that had a mortgage is basically living on the street because the bank owns their house and has sold it to people that they want to come in the world, their country, to work for cheaper. So maybe it's a good idea not to invest in a whole bunch of new stuff unless you have your life sorted, unless you're living like house is paid for, cars paid for. If you got fired today, you wouldn't have to. No expenses. I think that's all right. But invest in something new at the moment. And I find this kind of weird that all these new cameras are coming out, all these new crazy expensive lenses are coming out. And it appears that a lot of places, the world is just blowing up, So I don't know about buying something new right now. So yeah, that's what I got to say about that. Right now it's 22:19. I got to brush my teeth. Got to get my girls in bed and myself in bed. So guys, thank you very much. The beginning, as Victor will know, was a little bit choppy. Got to work on that. Still choppy. Still trying to work on this whole thing. But thank you guys very much for tuning in for so long. And I hope to get the Fit Ear Titan review out on Friday. Hoping to open a new channel next week, and I hope to have more videos more often. Also, I'm thinking Tuesday or Wednesday every week, try to do a live stream. If that's okay, then maybe we can meet here again on Tuesday or Wednesday next week. If anyone can chime in here. Right now, sorry, it's Wednesday in Japan. Maybe in your country, it's not. So if this is a good time, just give me a 1 in the chat or just say it's a good time. There's only like 7 of you here anyway. So if not, then name another day. Weekends not good because I like to spend my time with my family as much as possible on the weekends. But yeah, if this is a good time, tell me. If another day's good time, tell me. Otherwise, I'm just thinking I'll just do on Wednesday night or Tuesday night, whichever. and it'll probably rotate because I don't have a real hard schedule. So yeah, if there's no ones, there's no Tuesdays or Wednesdays in the chat, then I'll just say thank you guys very much for sticking with me. And you know, the new normal took my job. Oh man, sorry about that, Veritas. Yeah. Well, I hope things go well for you, man. Like the new normal also took my event job, so yeah, that's what it is. Carry on. And if you don't give me a Wednesday or Tuesday, I'm just going to close it on here. See you guys later. Thank you very much. And subscribe to Marcus H's Instagram channel for sure. Do that. That's good. All right. See you guys. Thank you very much. Oh, wait. That's right. I got to exit the cool way, which is to go into the live stream intro. That's what I got to do. Go backwards. You got to do this like, there's like a way to do it that's like actually kind of cool. And there's the way I do it, which ain't so good, but Chrome tab, live stream intro, boom. And then it just kind of slowly fades into here, and we're going to kind of get some new nice music here. And then, oh, you can't. I just realized you guys can't hear this. I'm just thinking, I'm an idiot. Stop screen, share screen, Chrome tab, boom, share audio, boom. There we are. All right, so it's kind of a slow zoom out. Have a wonderful week, everyone. It's been great. See you later. Bye-bye.